So, if you want to know about cultivating your sexual energy and harnessing your sexual energy, if you want to know about how to have equilibrium and balanced relationships without killing someone or without going nuts, then check out both my course, which is called Sane and Sexy, a comprehensive guide to emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness, and a calls program that is about having control and being empowered and having control over being sovereign over your sexual energy, and tons of practices that will benefit you and you will have access to it. So please check our programs. It's in the description box below. We talked in a previous podcast about sexual energy fundamentals 101, and I'm going to leave a link to that podcast also in the description box so you can go and check it out. And I'm gonna piggyback on what Akal said regarding, we were talking about sexual energy and intention. Akal expressed that and pronounced that from his point of view and as a man. And I'm going to say that the power of intention in sexual relationships, and what I always stress on when it comes to conscious relationships, is I cannot say how important this is, which means that this is really a key point in taking your sexual energy, your sexual encounters to the next level. And I always talk to men. I'm telling you, even if you're going to pay a sex worker, use that intention. Go with the intention of, I want to give pleasure to that woman, and see miracles happen. Miracles happen because women are givers and caretakers, and they are nurturers by nature. This is how we are wired. And when the man comes with the energy of, I want to give you pleasure, you are the most important thing, I want to make sure that you are in ecstasy, women bloom. And it doesn't happen the other way around, because we are the receivers, the incubators. That's why the word woman comes from womb. That's why the universe trusted us with the womb and not the man. There is a wisdom behind that. So if you pay a sex worker for 1 hour, just go and test this. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go and test it and say, I want to make this woman happy, and give her pleasure and listen to her, and then see what happens. She will give you unconditionally. This worked without a fail until now. Like literally, even if you want to give her a massage, give your partner a massage. Just give your partner a massage. Just don't go with the intention of, I want to have sex. Just say, I want to give my I want my partner to relax, and see what happens afterwards. And don't have expectations too. If something did not happen today, maybe she will go and eat you up tomorrow. Okay, eat you out tomorrow. So it just go with that intention. I want to give pleasure, rather than what's in it for me, what can I take. And actually it goes the other way around too. So women, please don't go in a sexual encounter thinking, how can he please me? How many orgasms can he give me? And I'm just sitting out there and he can, show me what you've got. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you want to have quality relationships, it doesn't work, because love, and this is not some cliche, lovey dovey, yucky love stuff thing, but this is how energy works. Love is about giving and not about taking. And actually, the pleasure is in giving. So you can try these things out, and then the balance will come, because there is something called like negative polarization in sex and positive polarization. And that is why so many people have sex and then they tend to feel bad afterwards because they feel used and abused after the interaction. They don't feel good because they feel that the person took advantage of them. Regardless if it's a one night stand, if it's a hookup, if it's a fling, all these labels that we put on the interaction, this is not a problem. The word is not the problem. The interaction and the encounter is the problem. How did you treat the other partner in the encounter? Were you conscious enough to say, I am here honoring that person, honoring that connection, honoring that exchange of sexual energy, of fluids, of emotions. Don't think that you will you will be devoid of emotions and there will be no attachments. That's bullshit. Bullshit. We establish energy cords. We take each other's shit and emotional baggages when you sleep with someone. People, get your head into this. There is nothing called no strings attached. Sexual energy is the most potent encounter you can ever have with someone you will have. So please be picky about who you get involved with and what is your intention. And the other thing that I want to talk about is men are wired to want to penetrate. You can just correct me if I'm wrong, a call on that. Like, men are hyper focused on intercourse and penetration. So personally, in my case, this is what I've done for so many years. When I am with someone and he's not really geared, his mind is not wrapped up about the idea of tantra or having really quality, he only knows what he knows, right? He only knows that this is what women like. The women who he has been with are not into foreplay or long duration of the sexual encounter. You are conscious of these things that I'm talking about. You have to be in the driver's seat. Like, I literally take men and say, you're gonna do it my way or the highway. You have to try out this, okay? Take it as an experiment, see if you're gonna like it. So we're going into breathing together sometimes to build. You can choose whatever way to build connection. Cook together first. Listen to a piece of music, dance together first. So whatever it takes you to build some kind of connection. So I have some practices that I teach my clients in the couples therapy, and also it's in the course as well. It's mentioned in the course. Or you can develop your own if you want to, but there are some practices to build connection. So take it from there and build connection before you get intimate. Build intimacy practices and take him through it, and don't be pressured for him that he wants to penetrate fast. No, take your time, take your clothes off piece by piece, and every half hour if you want to, so just take your time, be in the driver's seat, and lead your man until he gets out of his head, because men are naturally hyper focused on their cock. So just get them out of this, and always the feedback is, oh my god, this is another level of pleasure and orgasm and sex, because men usually don't give themselves time to experience something else. So do you have anything to build on that, Akal?
Yeah. So okay, so there's levels here that I'm kind of perceiving. So the level we're talking about is that these two are actually going to have sex, these people. That's an assumption, right? Because let's say she's not interested in sex, right? That happens often. Like, I have guys come to me all the time and they're like, my wife doesn't even want to have sex, right? This is a huge issue, is rejection. So I guess the question I would have, so we talk about approach and how incredibly important approach is. But again, the assumption is that both individuals want to connect. They want to have sex. And let's say only one of the partners wants to, it could be the man or the woman, frankly, But oftentimes I would think it's the woman who's going to tend to resist sex, which is good in some ways because that oftentimes will slow down his progression, right? But in the case where she's completely not interested, like, what do you do? Like, if you're a guy, like, you can only masturbate so much, right? So is there a way, in your experience, in which a woman can kind of kindle those fires, and saying without him, right? This is inner work, right? As you know, like, the inner work has to happen first. Two eyes come together to create a we. And so the two eyes need to do their inner work. So the guy, if he's interested in sexual energy cultivation, he has to do the work. And in this case, there was someone I was listening to, he was tantra guru type. The guy said, and this sat with me for years when this man said this. I probably heard this maybe 10 years ago. He said that women are naturally tantric, men have to do the practices. And basically what that means, as far as I understand, is that a woman simply needs to relax into her body, right? The guy has to, like, elevate this energy and get it up and get it out of his dick. And, like, he's got to be, like, differently focused. He has to redo his concentration, redo his focus, because like we applied in the Sexual Energy 101 video, is that a man's driving strength is his sexual energy, where a woman, she can function very naturally from her heart space, where a guy, not so much. Like, so we kind of need to elevate it to that space. And this is not 100% true. I'm making generalizations, of course.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you, going back to the original question, which is, what can a woman do for her own cultivation in order to reconnect to her sexual energy so that she's wanting to have sex again? Let's say she's had the same partner for 5 years. Maybe she's just like, I'm done, I'm shut down, or she's had children. Like, what do you do?
Okay, so I can go on 2 tangents here to answer your question. First, how to connect with herself, and second, how to connect with her partner. For a woman to connect with herself, she has to step into her feminine energy. If you step into the household and you see your partner cooking, having a Zoom meeting, and she has to nurse her child, and then at the end of the day, you want to walk into the bedroom and expect great sex, forget it. She's not in that mind space. She's not in that energy. She is in her masculine. What does that mean, being in her masculine? She's getting things done. Okay. So if you want to have sex that night, you better take some loads off her shoulder. You better say, hey, honey, I'm just going to take care of the kid today. I'm just going to take them out to park, or I'm going to take them out to a friend of mine, or to our aunt. Then we can have the whole evening for, hey, don't worry about cooking tonight. Let us order in, let us order some food. So she can take in. So what happens here? Then you give her a chance to go to her feminine, which means go and take a bath. Go and listen to some soothing music. Go and put on some lingerie. Why don't you? I booked you tomorrow for this salon, so go get your nails done. That is a stepping into your feminine. But if I am in my masculine and I'm dealing with the plumber, and I'm dealing with the kids screaming, and I'm dealing with what are we gonna have for dinner, and you're gonna ask me to have quality sex, I'm sorry. No, no, it's not gonna happen. So you have to, what I mean, you have to prep your woman. It's mostly about the mindset. When I have couples who want to rekindle their spark, their fire, when it starts to fizzle, I always tell them, go do endorphin enticing activities together. Go do some sports together. Go hiking with a group. Go, let her see you in your masculine. Let her see you doing some let's go hiking, go kayaking, go canoeing. Let her see you in your masculine. So that will, and when you do some endorphin enticing, this builds a bond. The hormones build a bond. Let her see that she can count on you, that she can rely on you. And especially in a group, she wants to see how others perceive you. And she wants to feel that I am proud that this is my man and I get to go to bed with him. Let him see you in a sexy leggings or a yoga pant, and let him see men check you out, and see how smart and intelligent and in her zone his woman is. This rekindles and entices the heat and the connection between couples. These are things that they can work on, and that keeps the thing going. That keep because for the flame to kind of fizzle, this is natural, this is normal. But when you guys are together in different activities, different atmosphere, different ambience, this is actually helps rekindle this spark.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. Obviously, from my perspective, it's difficult because I'm a guy, so I'm going to perceive things through guys' lenses. But what you explained, actually, it makes a lot of sense in that, again, there's generalizations coming into my head here I'm trying to avoid a little bit, but this idea that a man needs to display his masculinity. And like my partner made a comment, this is maybe 2 weeks ago, that I found was really interesting. And to me, it was poignant. I mean, I've been looking at men's stuff, men's group stuff and men's work for 15, 20 years now. And it was never really summarized, in my opinion, quite the way that my partner said. She basically said that there's an exalted female and there's an exalted male, right? So we're all starting off at some base point, which is the general biology. I am a guy and these are my guy tendencies. And then we start to make choices and we start to elevate our behaviors. And in the end, the question always that she brought up, her comment was, she feels that a man's responsibility is ultimately kind of patriarchal, in the sense of a man is here to, in some ways, to show the children, let's say if there's children, to show the children how to become independent in the world. Other words, a man needs to be exemplary of the ability to support, the ability to show his sort of masculine traits, right? Like when a woman tells you to do something physical, it's because you can, right? Like a guy can go lift shit. That's attractive. Is like, hey, he lifted and moved all this stuff for me. That's great. Do it. Like when guys cower like, oh, I don't want to do this and that. Like, just do it. Like lift the stuff, move the things, use the tools, go for walks, use your body, because that's what guys are good for in that regard. And also, if you're not a particularly physical dude, function through the intellect, use your intelligence, use your brain. But again, it comes back to what my partner implied, which is that, again, a man or the father's role in the sort of dynamic is to show the child how to become independent. So ultimately, whether there's children involved or not, it really has to do with a man. Our function in the world is to gain that independence and to sort of be able to cultivate a livelihood, a stability, to, my mother would say, feathering the nest, right? These things are really important. So if a guy's not pulling his weight, then he's not going to be terribly attractive. That's what I'm implying from what you said and explained. So that's interesting. There was something else that came up. See if I can remember what it was. So another kind of question is that, let's say I'm just going to pick your brain about women's stuff. I'm very curious so you mentioned a woman needing to sort of move into her body in the sense of like pulling out of the sort of her masculine energy and being busy into like her sort of receptivity, her sensuality, and things of that nature. So now do you have, once a woman, I guess, is, let's say there's no interest in sex at all, right? There's zero interest. Like, I don't know, sometimes people get shut down. I met several men like this as well, where it's just like they become asexual all of a sudden. And I think it's probably more common than we think. But one of the questions I would have is there, let's say the woman genuinely, although she has no sensation of the sexual energy, she's not connected to it, right?
Yeah.
She can be in her body and feel very sensual about her body, but it doesn't say sex, right?
Yeah.
Am I explaining this? Is it because maybe she's in her head too much, or is it because maybe she's too anchored into her masculine roles, or yeah, is there something that a woman can do to connect to the sexual energy in its raw form in order to sort of get it moving again?
Okay, so I would love to have this juicy conversation and save it to another podcast altogether, but I'm just gonna touch on it briefly because
Yep.
I think we're gonna run out of time very soon. So the thing is, to answer the first part of your question, can women be sensually kind of connected with they are, but not have an interest in sex? And I'm gonna use the same rule that we established earlier in the fundamentals of sexual energy. Energy flows where attention goes. So I can look stunning, but when men come and sit with me, I have no interest in sex. And but how can you be so stunning and looking so sexy? And yeah, it's for me. But what's happening here is my focus is not on attracting a partner, whether it's a homosexual relationship or it's a heterosexual relationship. It doesn't matter. My head has to be in that space because energy flows where attention goes. So let's say my attention is now on cultivating spirituality. That means, what am I going to do with my sexual energy? I'm going to fast. I'm going to be concentrating on spiritual matters. I'm going to be super focused and hyper focused on cultivating my inner peace and inner work with the self, with my inner being, with the God, whatever you want to call it, with my higher self. So sex is not going to be in the equation. Okay. And women can easily more than men step into that because women they have diverse interests in general, and if they are more in general connected, they have a strong intuition, so they have the tendency to be more spiritual, because also we know about the emotional centers. We have to talk about the emotional centers. So men have one emotional center, women have many emotional centers, which makes them makes them have the tendency to lean more towards spirituality. So if that is the case, yes, she can be connected, she can go pamper herself all she wants, but because her attention and her focus is on something else, she might not have the interest in sexual encounters, if that make any sense.
Yeah, I guess yeah, it kind of does. And I think I think what it implies, sort of indirectly, what it implies is this idea that if you're like, how do I say this? So it's interesting that oftentimes, like historically speaking, you look at all the sort of quote unquote famous yogis that say came out of India. They're usually dudes, right? And the question always came up to me, which is why weren't they women? And could be because of just the sort of gender fixations within the culture itself. I don't know. Or another thing that I was thinking of is that you look at the modern yoga in the US, let's say in the USA, probably true in Canada and other places as well, is that the majority of people doing the yoga are women. It's this female thing. And so, and the one thing I've noticed, because I've done personal training for 25 years and things like that. So I'm very, and I also teach yoga, blah, blah, blah. But I'm very accustomed to seeing people move. And women, generally speaking, are more comfortable in their own bodies, this is why I find it interesting, is that I tend to think that men need these practices more than they're willing to engage them. Men need the yoga, in my opinion, more than women do, because women are innately more connected. I've seen it through the fluidity of their movement, et cetera, et cetera. And again, this is not a flaw. This is part of biology and how we kind of function. It also could be a fair amount of like sort of social conditioning over the course of hundreds and thousands of years. Who knows? But the reality is that we're driven how we're driven. We focus how we focus. We tend to repress emotions. We don't always sort of engage ourselves in honest ways, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm kind of getting at here is that it seems like if a woman is, I don't want to use the term frigid, but I'm going to use it. because I don't know a different word. If she's shut down from her sexual energy, the process, as you implied, which is to connect to the sort of spiritual aspect then, and that ultimately through connecting through the spiritual aspect, she will become more connected to the body. As she becomes more connected to the body, she becomes more connected to the innate energies of the body. And that seems to be what you're implying. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. And there is another point, but we're running out of time. So maybe I will mention it in the next video, which is about the blueprint. So we can talk about it in the next podcast. I'll just take a note of it. And cool. Yeah, we can talk about in the next podcast. Why don't you wrap up this podcast?
Yeah. So first up, like, I just want to kind of thank everyone for watching the video. And just as a reminder, down below the video are the links for our programs, my sexual energy program and Amira's program that's related to sort of wellness cultivation within oneself, but also how it applies to conscious relationships, etc. So yeah, with all that said, thank you much.
Thank you. And thank you for hanging out with me, Akal. And thank you guys for hanging out with us. Much love. Namaste.
Namaste.